Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, good evening, good evening. We're gonna have some more folks coming in, and as a good Army man, I gotta start on time. I'm 5 minutes late, so I owe you 5 minutes of this great discussion that we're going to have. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to everyone coming out tonight so that we can address this real problem, not only that we have in Gwinnett County in this region, but also throughout the world. This is something that's near and dear to my heart because when you look at what's about to take place in Gwinnett County with an international event that we're gonna take on, you have to understand that the way our society looks at trafficking and being trafficked and other things is different around the world. We look at it one way, some countries look at it differently. Who are we to say they're wrong, and who are they to say we're wrong? But we're doing what's right. And so with that, I want to say thank you all for being here tonight. Human trafficking is real, it's local, and far too often it goes unseen. Tonight is about awareness, it's about accountability, and it's about making sure that our community knows how to recognize the signs and where help exists. I want to thank our panelists for being here and for the work they do every day. I also want to thank everyone in the audience for showing up to this difficult but necessary conversation. I want you to know, as a pharmacist, the way we're taught, we have to get continuing education on this subject to get our license renewed. And we look at this a little differently than some folks. We look at this as a systemic neurobiological event. That is, it's a conditioning cycle. It's a threat, then it's fear, then it's relief, then it's comfort, then it's attachment, then it's threat all over again. That is a neurobiological event that's occurred. It's almost like that autonomic nerve thing that happens. So when a person is repeatedly threatened, assaulted, and conditioned through cycles of harm and relief, their brains actually shift out of identity-based functioning, and it goes into survival-based functioning. That's what I think we don't recognize a lot of time. It's survival. So over time, what happens is that survivor may lose the access to fight or flee responses. They may experience compliance automatically. They may feel calm during the exploitation and distress during safety. It's the experience of shame for not resisting. So I say to you, we place the accountability and the responsibility on the trafficker, not on the victim. That's where it belongs. You hear it far too often. Why didn't it leave? Why didn't they go? Well, stop asking why, because that's not the response. So with that, we're going to share a brief video with an excerpt to help ground us and get ready for this discussion. Video, please.
This place was bad and it had a reputation for prostitution and sex trafficking. They would sell these children condoms at the front desk.
I was trafficked for a while until I figured out how to make my life easier.
Everything that they've known has been transactional.
Yeah, I'm just helping mom. She's just trying to keep it all together. If you've got rose-colored glasses on, you don't recognize the red flags. If this is all you see, it doesn't pop up as a danger.
When we approach a victim, she can be kind of trained to lie. A lot of pimps tell their girls, if the police ever catches you, this is what you're gonna say.
Our office will prosecute people that do these types of crimes and bring justice
This verdict really sends a message to the hospitality industry.
I got out at 16 pregnant. My grandma told me, I don't have any money for you, and I'm trying to figure it out.
So before we start talking about enforcement, policy, or prevention, it's important that we start with the human impact of this issue. Our first voice tonight is someone who has turned her own experience into a mission to help others. Casey McClure is the founder of For Sarah, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting women who are seeking a way out of exploitation and helping them find healing, stability, and hope. She also participates in the Unholy Land Bus event, helping communities better understand the realities of trafficking, exploitation, and helping around us, that's happening around us. Casey, I want to thank you for being here tonight and your willingness to share your story so that all of us could hear. My first question to you would be, can you share a little bit about your journey and what led you to start For Sarah?
Thank you.
Is it on? Yep.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Thank you, Commissioner, for putting this event on. I think it's really important. So For Sarah is a nonprofit organization. We are survivor-led. And I'm actually, through my lived experiences, I started For Sarah in officially 2005 after the birth of my daughter, Sarah. During that time, before I had my daughter, I was working in a strip club. I worked at the Gold Club and the Pink Pony. And through my late husband, he invited me to church. And going to church while I was still dancing, I felt the conviction. And through that, For Sarah was birthed. We started out just doing outreaches and going to the strip clubs. And my grandfather was a buyer. He would buy prostitutes, and he was murdered on July 3rd, 2004, while he was on a car date in Pritchard, Alabama. And it opened my eyes to the women that are on the streets. And I felt like they needed to be helped just as much as the dancers did. And just through all that, through my lived experiences, and my sister, who was also a dancer, who actually danced 21 years, and my brother, who actually was a dancer as well for 1 year at Swingin' Richards. So through all that, I just felt a calling that I might be able to show some girls the way out, just like God had kind of showed me.
That's very powerful. So what do you wish people understood about exploitation that they often don't see?
I don't think it's happening here.
Right.
When I first started For Sarah, and I was telling law enforcement and telling judges in Conyers, Georgia, where I was attending church, that I wanted to help dancers and strippers and prostitutes and escorts, they were like, oh, that's an Atlanta problem. Well, now you go to Conyers, it's a Conyers problem. And that was 20 years ago. So it's not getting better, it's gotten worse. And I think it's important that you continue to have these conversations, because you think it won't happen to you. You can have your child, your daughter, in the best schools, going to the best churches, in the best environment, and they can still make that decision to leave home and go into this lifestyle for the fast money that it brings.
Wow. So through For Sarah, you meet women who are still in life. What have those conversations with those women taught you?
When I speak to them, I'm speaking to myself too. One thing it's taught me is that they don't get it the first time. I remember when I was dancing, like, how do you tell someone that's making thousands of dollars that there's a better life for them? They have to be tired. It took 3 years while I was dancing. I kept saying, oh, I'm gonna quit this year. I'm gonna quit this year. I'm gonna quit this year. And I never did. It took my grandmother dying and me meeting my late husband while I was dancing. It was just that trust, building that trust with somebody. And if they don't trust you, they're not gonna leave with you. And it's just taking the time to understand that it can happen to anybody. And no matter what age, whether they're 13 or whether they're 45 or 55, when they're in a vulnerable state and that opportunity opens up, they can go into that lifestyle very easily.
Right. So you also participate in the Unholy Land Bus event. Why is it important for people to understand that this is happening in our own communities?
Well, as Commissioner Tim Eccles, former Commissioner Tim Eccles, actually came up with this idea in 2015. And he reached out to me because he knew I would do strip club outreaches and go into the clubs in certain areas. And he made me a commentator. And he said, I have this idea to bring lawmakers on a bus around Atlanta, and you just tell us where we need to go and so we can learn about trafficking. Honestly, I thought it was a crazy idea. I was like, that's insane. But I was like, okay, I'll do it. And through that, the very first one, a lady had saw the news story that Channel 2 had did, and she called our hotline, and her 14-year-old granddaughter was a runaway in Roswell, had been missing for a month and through the holidays, and we located her online on Backpage, which I'm not sure if y'all know what Backpage is, but it was a hot spot for minors that were being trafficked and sold. It's basically a copycat to Craigslist, except the feds finally shut it down, but it didn't get rid of the problem. They just moved to other websites. But the Unholy Bus event would take lawmakers, and we would go to hotels and certain areas throughout Atlanta that people would not feel safe going, and we would just do an educational bus tour, basically. But through that, a 14-year-old girl was recovered, and then another mother whose daughter was murdered in 2016. Through that relationship, we were able to also help the mother locate the killers, who are now pending charges in Newton County for murder of a dancer.
That's powerful. For someone who feels trapped tonight or who's watching, what would you want them to hear?
That there is hope. Sometimes we feel like judged. You know, when I first came out of the lifestyle, I didn't tell people what I did, especially if you go and work in a normal work environment. So there's like there's a bridge, like how if a dancer or a girl that was prostituting has prostitution charges, going into a normal work environment is hard. But mostly just letting them know that you can do this. You can dream. Like, I remember when I was dancing, I always wanted to go to school and be the first in my family to graduate and get a college degree. And I actually, in 2024, I graduated and got my college degree. I got my bachelor's degree from Mercer University. And then in May, my daughter graduates from UGA on May the 8th, and I graduate the next day from Mercer with my master's degree.
Oh, okay, all right now.
So as long as you don't quit dreaming, there's opportunities for you. Just like God allowed me to share my testimony, there'll also be opportunities for women to share their, to get their voice back and not to be afraid to speak out.
Well, Casey, I want to thank you, and I hope everybody caught that first thing that she said, her faith. That was very important. You've heard it through every question and answer. It started with your faith. I think people need to understand that, because if you don't have faith, you can't have hope.
It's the only thing that saved me.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your time. Next, we're going to talk about enforcement. Trafficking doesn't always look like people expect it to. It often intersects with other crimes and everyday encounters. This next section that we're going to go into focuses on how trafficking is identified, investigated, and disrupted, and the role of the community plays in helping law enforcement intervene sooner. Joining me now are Gwinnett Police investigators, Major Jordan Griffin, Vice Unit Sergeant John Daltrey, and Gwinnett Sheriff's Office Special Projects Director Candace Pittman. I want to thank all of you all for being heavy hitters, huh? This is great. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I know we've spoken before. You showed me some stuff. I'm like, okay. Okay, to Major Griffin. Major Griffin, how does human trafficking typically presents itself in Gwinnett County? And what realities often surprise people the most?
So one of the ways we normally see this is sexual servitude, which can present itself in a couple of different ways. One of those is undocumented people coming from other countries. They may only speak their native language, not have proper documentation, and they owe a significant amount of money to someone who helped bring them here, who will then coerce them or give them an opportunity to make that money through sex work, through prostitution, and put that person in a position where they feel like they don't have any other option. Another one is young people who are, young guys, young girls. They may be in a relationship with someone who's older, grooms them into that lifestyle, actually makes them feel love, attachment, and then pushes them into a position where sex work is an option. In the follow-up to your question is, I would say what surprises people the most. I think the illusion of consent. People think of prostitution as something where someone is making this adult conscious decision for themselves, but someone who got into this at 14, 15 years old with no other options, even as they get older, that's not really something that they can consent to.
Oh, wow, that's great. So, Sergeant Daughtry, many cases start quietly. How does the community awareness and reporting help create opportunities to intervene earlier?
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting us tonight.
Yeah.
The community response, I got to say, here in Gwinnett County has been wonderful. Between some of the advocates in the area, our partners here at Gwinnett County Solicitors and DA's office, but for the community to get involved, a lot of times it is education, meetings like this today, reaching out, letting the public understand that, yes, we are the police, but one of our goals mostly is to rescue this person that's trapped in this lifestyle and go after who's exploiting them. So a lot of times we attend different types of meetings, events, things like this, and try to educate people about how to, when you encounter somebody involved in this lifestyle, when you intercept them, a lot of times in the community, a lot of times you may intercept them when they are not ready to leave this lifestyle, or they are ready to leave the lifestyle. The community support can come from anywhere. So when we go out there, yes, we are proactive with the Gwinnett County Police Department. I know the Sheriff's Department is as proactive as we are, because this is also one of those crimes where you have to go out as law enforcement and grab a hold of these people sometimes and educate them to, hey, there's a better life for you. We are the police, and we're not looking to put you in jail. We're looking to rescue you and make you whole again as the person you want to be. So we do it that way and through education. Some of the, like I said, the speaking events we get, we recently went and educated the fire department. A lot of times the fire department gets called out to these domestic scenes or domestic situations sometimes where they are not the police, but maybe they can offer some assistance. Hey, I can make a phone call you. I can contact an advocate. I can do something to help you get out of the lifestyle. It could be somebody, we've all heard the stories about the waitresses who notice maybe the way a female is blinking at them or following them to the bathroom and making contact with the bathroom. Hey, is everything okay? Can I make a phone call for you? So it's just not just educating the public, it's also educating the victims that are out there that you're not in trouble. We want to help you, but we can also meet you in the middle where you need to be met to get you the services you need.
Right, that's great. I remember you told me about a couple of those instances.
Yes.
And it's great. So, Ms. Pittman, how does the Sheriff's Department balance enforcement with the trauma-informed approach that prioritizes dignity and safety for the victims?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to echo what the gentlemen were saying up here about the collaborative nature here in Gwinnett County. I think first and foremost, we're so unique in Gwinnett County in that we do work collaboratively together. And as someone who's been within the criminal justice system for nearly 30 years, I've seen lots of trends, come and go, but one thing that's maintained has been that collaborative spirit between the agencies, and it's so important in order for us to be able to assist these victims. And I'm so fortunate to now work at the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office, where they've proactively taken that victim-centered, trauma-informed approach. We are uniquely positioned in that we can actually, from the onset of investigations, have victim services embedded within our ops. Something that we've recently formalized within the Office of the Chief is a victim services unit, to where we can now assign someone, to be with from start to finish these cases and provide services to victims. And many of the agencies that are here, we've worked with for years, and rely on them in order to serve these victims, because anyone that works in this type of work will tell you, the trauma is very real, and you have to take a unique stance when interacting with the victims that we encounter.
That's great. That is perfect. And that's a great segue into where we're going at with our section 3. So thank you all for being here this evening. I really appreciate it. So now we're going to get into the justice and accountability. The next part of the conversation will focus on accountability. What happens after trafficking is identified and the case moves forward? So we're joined tonight by our Solicitor General, Lisa Marie Bristol, our District Attorney, Patty Austin Gaston, and Attorney Pat McDonald, each of whom sees these cases from different sides of justice, but all with the same goal: protecting survivors and holding people and institutions accountable. So let's start with our Solicitor General. Solicitor General Bristol, what challenges arise when survivors navigate the justice system, and how does your office work to protect them while they go through that process?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I think what we realize is, despite the great collaboration with our partners, and I'm grateful for those bridge building opportunities, we still get cases that are misidentified. And my office might get a case where it appears that somebody's a defendant, but they're actually a victim. They're actually a victim of human trafficking, and that's something where they may be caught on the wheel, the cycle of violence. And so that's one of the biggest challenges. What my office does is we investigate our cases at the front end to ensure that those cases that come in are properly identified. And when we do recognize that someone has been misidentified as a defendant who's actually a victim, or if we have a survivor, what we really try and do is ensure that we understand there's a stigma involved with this lifestyle. Our victim services department is robust, and they understand that we have to be trauma informed. We have to be victim-centered. We have to ensure that we are acknowledging the hard decisions that they may be forced to make. And education is key, right? So we've touched on that a bit, educating and starting early. We go out to the high schools and we talk to high school students about the red flags of teen dating violence. We talk about the red flags of human trafficking, what to look for, not just with themselves, but with their friends as well, and how to report those issues to safe spaces. So I think some of the original pitfalls that come is whether they're improperly identified as a defendant, but then being open to looking beyond that and making sure that they are getting the services and the resources that they need, and that we are being sensitive and culturally inclusive when we give those services to them.
Well, thank you. And that leads us to our district attorney, Austin Gaston. I'm telling you, our DA does not play. You didn't have a rhyme, right? Our DA don't play. And I'm telling you, she is committed, okay? So, Ms. DA, what do survivors need most from the justice system to feel believed and supported?
I think as we look at this problem, we have to realize it's only going to get bigger. We have about 10 of these cases right now in our office, and the way things are trending, it's going to get worse. And the best thing I can say for everyone is that we need to know what this is all about. We need to know and let victims know that there are mechanisms that they can use. You know, we have the law, we're going to back the law up. We have a statute that talks about people that are victimized, and we do realize that most of the people victimized are women, and that's what's happening. And we have to understand that we have to reach out, we have to move forward on this, but there is law there that we will enforce. And I think our policing agencies, I am very much appreciative of what the sheriff's office is doing, what our Gwinnett PD is doing, because they're catching people. And even when folks don't realize that they can be in a fancy neighborhood and be trafficking someone out of a nice apartment. And this is happening right here in our county. A lot of times we don't want to think that this is going on here. We don't want to think, no, not in my neighborhood. It might be right in your neighborhood, unfortunately. And the thing about the human trafficking, it's gotten such a huge, huge situation here. It's even bigger now than people selling drugs, because you got a commodity that they can keep using over and over. Unfortunately, I hate to refer to people in that way because it reminds us of slavery, when people were used as commodities, and that's what's happening here. And people have to understand that there is a way out. We're here to help them. And it's not just, the prostituting part of the equation. It's also people that are caught up in labor. You may have somebody working in someone's home and they can't get out because they're kind of stuck there. You got people that are coming in, working in restaurants, maybe working 12, 15-hour days, and they can't find a way out. So we have seen those cases too. It's human trafficking. Unfortunately, this is what our society is dealing with. And we all have to put our arms around people that are experiencing this so that we can help. And that's the main thing. We need to all be helping. Thank you, Commissioner, for doing what you're doing here to bring knowledge to the community. And we have to all do it. All of our collaborative agencies, we have to work together. I see mosaics here, all of this. And Deborah, thank you too. This is important that we really tackle this problem. It's not going away.
Well, thank you. Now I'm going to introduce you to Attorney Pat McDonald. He represented survivors in the largest civil verdict in the United States history against a hotel, and turned a blind eye to human trafficking. Thank you, Pat. So my question to you is, what responsibilities do businesses and institutions have when warning signs are present, and what message did that verdict send?
Well, businesses have a responsibility not to profit off the backs of our children, right? I mean, basically, when you said earlier there are victims, there are traffickers, we tell people there's victims, there's traffickers, and there's a venue or the crime scene, because there's a place where it's being done. And ultimately, here's the thing. I typically focus on hotels, but it can be any business. A trafficker is not going to sell, as she said, the property that they're trying to sell over and over at a place that calls the police every time. A buyer's not going to come to a property or hotel where the police are going to be called every time. The police can't be everywhere. I've worked with these guys. They're the most amazing in the world, but you can't be 24/7 security everywhere. You know who can be there? The hotel owner, the person that lives there, the person that works there, the person that sees it. And they will try to spin this clandestine. It's so hard to figure it out. I'm going to tell you, I've done 80 of these cases now. I've got front desk people sleeping with children. I have a case right now where I have 6 minors in a hotel. 3 of them slept with the front desk person for money. I've got people calling the trafficker, hey, the police are approaching. I got them putting the Crips over here and the Bloods over here. I tell them they rolled up VIP treatment out for the traffickers. So what we hope the verdict did, it was a $40 million verdict against a hotel. And what we hope that says is, you know what? It's not profitable. Because that's why they're doing it. Why the traffickers selling the children is to make money. These hotels are doing the same thing. If you rent the room and pay the rent, they don't care. That's the bottom line. And listen, there's tons of great hotels doing great jobs, and it's not everybody. But there are these particular places, and word of mouth gets around, and they know where to take the person to exploit them. And so we're just one other little piece to this, this mosaic of people in this fight, and we hope that little part helps.
Well, that is perfect. And I want to thank you all for this, because what we've now heard is we've heard the perspective. We've talked about enforcement, right? You've gotten the perspective on that. We've looked at the justice and accountability. And now we're going to move from the victim to victorious. So thank you all so much for being here with us. Thank you, Carol. Leaving the trafficking situation is not the end of the story, folks. It's often the beginning of a long road toward healing. This final section focuses on recovery, prevention, and the people walking alongside survivors every step of the way. So we're going to be joined by Maria Peed, Takesha Wyndham Smith, Lisa White, Tammy Wilder, and I'm going to get it, Angela Eula Berry. Leaders who work at centers on healing, advocacy, and hope. So let me start with Ms. P. Once someone exits the trafficking situation, what is the most immediate needs they must address for the healing to actually begin?
The primary things are that all humans need, and one is to feel safe, to be able to get some good, solid sleep. You mentioned the neurobiology and the impacts that living in those high stress, hypervigilant circumstances. And they need to be around trusted people that can protect that space and help them rebuild that peace. And it doesn't happen quickly. It doesn't happen in weeks or months, and it requires a lot of continued support. So I would say safety is the first thing, and then the health as well. I will say that the way our system is set up, there's more emphasis from the legal system on the commerce aspect than the physical abuse that the victim suffers. And by physical abuse, it's not just the rape or labor, but those psychological and neurobiological issues that you face. If your house burns down from arson, you get the fire department, you get the insurance adjuster, you get a whole range of services to help you rebuild your house. But if you've been trafficked, we don't have a societal system in place to build in the kinds of supports that are needed to help you become whole.
That's good. Well, Ms. Woodman Smith, I know I'm messing that one up. Trafficking is often misunderstood in the minority communities. How do stigma, fear, or cultural silence impact whether victims seek help?
So I first want to thank you for creating a brave space for the community to show up and be a part of this. Yes. Thank you. As a crisis trauma-informed psychotherapist, if at any point in time any individual needs help, please let me know. Signal. This is a common signal. And just for the audience to be aware too, if you're ever anywhere, whether it's law enforcement, our attorneys, this is a common signal that victims will let you know that they are in trouble and that they need help. Simply, either side, it's the hair behind the ear. Yep. Or behind either the right ear or the left ear. But that's a common signal. And that's information I can provide Commissioner Watkins after to share with everyone in the audience. But to answer your question, according to a 2-year study conducted by the Department of Justice in 2023, 40% of all victims or survivors are either Black or from the minority community. And what we find is that victims and survivors are often feared from being labeled, which I think you spoke of, believed, judged, or shamed. And I think it's really important, and you mentioned this early on, for people to stop asking why. And instead, how can I help you? Typically, the individuals that are being trafficked are either in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And freeze and fawn looks exactly like it sounds. If they're freezing, then they're frozen. Fawns just means that they are submitting to their abuser. So those are things I'd like for our community to think about, and those are things that impact and keep, especially minorities, from receiving services and help.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Will you do the hair thing again? What's
Yes. Simply behind the ear. Yep.
Okay. All right, didn't know that. So Ms. White, how does trafficking-related trauma continue to affect mental health long after someone escapes?
A lot of the answers that were given already are the same, but for mental health, you typically think of things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, low self-esteem, and those are common. But I would say the underlying roots that impacts more of the individuals that I worked with, which were foster care children that ended up in the sex trade industry because they're easily targeted, it makes sense, is that not being able to trust themselves and not being able to trust other people. And the world that they've been exposed to is the underbelly that most of us never see. It changes the way that they experience life, and it changes the way that they experience people. So even when they're trying to be in recovery, our expectation is, oh, we rescued you, or you have hope, or you have a new life now, and they feel exactly the same. They don't trust people, they don't trust systems, they don't trust what you tell them. They want to believe, but they're scared to believe. And the last thing that they can handle is more loss of hope, because they've had so much loss of hope up to that point. So it's very easy to think they should be more appreciative, or they should be more excited. And the 4 criteria that she kind of just talked about, which was fight or flight, which are easy to see when they run away. They run away from group homes. They run away from treatment. They run away whenever they're scared because they've learned to run away, or they fight. They fight the staff. They fight each other. They fight everyone, because that's the next thing they know how to do, be safe. And then freeze is like not do anything. And you're wondering, why aren't they getting better? Well, they're frozen. They don't feel anything. They don't experience anything. And then fawn is, I'm going to tell you whatever you want to hear because this is what I've learned to do. And they aren't actually getting any better. So getting them out of that is a very long and slow process. The numbers that go with how long it takes them to be in recovery fully is 7 and 7. It'd be 7 years to get out of this lifestyle, and it takes about 7 attempts. So if you think about that and you talk about recovery is cyclical, this system is cyclical. And they will mirror that as a trauma response in every other relationship that they have, because that's what they've learned and that's what they know. So they will act out that same victim mentality so that when you're trying to help, they're experiencing it as being re-traumatized. So it leaves a lasting impression on their ability to form relationships and to read input from other people and understand and trust it. It's a long answer, I'm sorry.
Right, that's okay, okay.
You need this one.
So, Ms. Wilder, as the only shelter for female youth in Gwinnett County, and you talked to me about it, and thank you for that, what unique vulnerabilities do young girls face, and how does early intervention change outcomes?
Yeah, I think with the kids in our shelter, they're vulnerable youth, right? So we've got kids who are unhoused, we've got kids who are in foster care, we've got kids that nobody's necessarily looking out for them, so they're easier to approach. You've got kids that because they don't really have that family support, or they really are by themselves a lot, they're looking for love. So it's easy for them to be approached. And then we have a lot of youth recruiting other youth in the program, right? And it starts off small. So you know how you could think, back in the day they would say, the white van's going to pull up, they're going to put the hand over your mouth and put you in the van. It's not how it looks now for these kids. It's, hey, would you go on a date with one of my friends? And if you do it, you're going to get $500. All you have to do is go to dinner. So it's another way to entice them. So they don't think they're doing anything wrong. It's harmless. But then they're getting caught up. It's harder for them to get out. And I think that a lot of times we see that a lot of the kids who have been trafficked, it's by friends and family members. So again, it's that familiar person. It's not the stranger anymore, right? So we see so much of that. And I think that when it comes to early intervention, we have this small window to reach these kids by giving them the supports like therapy, like education, right? We had a survivor come and speak to one of our girls' therapy sessions. And I asked her, I said, she was being trafficked from 16 to 24 years old. And I said, if someone could have helped you get out when you were 16, what could they have said that would help you? And she said, well, had a lot of church groups come and say, you got to get out, this life is not good for you. She said, but nobody gave me the resources to get out, because you need housing, you need employment. Those are the two main things that keep people in it. They don't want to be in it, but it's security, it's safety. So it's like you get all the people telling you what you need to do, but there's no immediate resource. So I feel like we have this small window, and we need to have more immediate resources for all of our victims, but especially our kids who have less access, right? And I think that would help us make some stronger marks in this.
Well, that's great. Thank you. So, Ms. Ulibarri, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Much of your work focuses on raising awareness and helping communities recognize the realities of trafficking. What should families and community members know about how trafficking can show up in everyday environments? And what are the warning signs should they be paying attention to?
Well, thank you for inviting me to come tonight. This has been great. As the parent of a child who was groomed online, we had an interesting view into this, and it was rather shocking. I thought we had everything in place. We did all the right things, and it happened right under our nose. And it was rather shocking. And we did all the things you're supposed to do. We called the police and we turned over all of the things. And because of the way many of these apps are that kids are using today, it was not traceable and there was nothing that we could do. But unfortunately, it left our daughter pretty scarred. Even though she was never lured from home, she was never trafficked, her innocence was stolen by her groomer, and she was taught things by him that no child should hear, let alone an adult. And so she was exposed to aberrant sexual behavior at the young age of 14, and that's something you can't get back. And so, we organized ourselves around this great Georgia Festival of Trees, a fun activity that's really a wonderful opportunity for us to educate people about trafficking in a really kind of nonchalant way, and it's worked really well. People come to see us and they find out what we're doing, and one of the things you hear a lot is, "What? I didn't know that was happening right here in Gwinnett County." So we have this really great opportunity to educate families. So to answer your question, what should people be looking for? When your child gets really secretive, when they're hiding your phone, when they're getting messages and they're leaving the room to take them, things like that are big. And I was listening to Tammy here talk about at-risk children. They are the more high-risk children. Our child lived in a two-parent home. She was homeschooled. She had everything she could ever want, and she was a victim to it because she presented herself in a certain way online that made her look vulnerable, which she kind of was, because she had low self-esteem and she had some struggles, but she wasn't technically at risk. And I think that's the most important thing that I could share today. There truly is no child that falls into, that is not at risk to traffickers, because they're watching, they're always watching. And our kids are on so many more social media places than we are. And so I'm sorry to say, we have to be nosy. And we have to be up in their business all the time, and we got to know what they're doing. And they may find that really offensive, but I wish I had knew what my daughter was doing.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you all for this great discussion. So what we're going to do, we're going to transition from this to our question and answers. So we have all the experts here that can do this. And thank you, ladies. I appreciate you. And what I want you to know is, now, with these town halls, what we've done is we've talked about the drugs. And Deborah and I have tried to make sure that we've talked about the drugs. We've talked about the behavior. We're talking about the consequence of some of that behavior. We have our Solicitor General and our DA who constantly have runs, topics, talks. Some people think ad nauseum on this subject. That should tell you something. It is real, folks, and it is here in Gwinnett County. So we've heard perspective. We've talked about the enforcement. We've looked at the justice and the accountability. We've looked at from victim to victorious. When I'm walking in Publix or in Walmart, I don't want to hear somebody say Gwinnett County doesn't do anything. I don't know that Gwinnett County is doing anything. How could you not know what all of these experts here and everything that we have online? Please, if you see something, say something. I believe in that 6 degrees of separation. With everybody in here, if we carried this conversation on to 6 other people in a week, we could have half the county aware. And it doesn't take a lot. We have it in our churches. I know Berean Christian church is having something on the weekend, the same topic. And people say, why do we keep having this? Well, why does it keep happening? That's the question we should ask. Why does it keep happening? The DA and the Solicitor General can only do so much. It takes a village, folks. It takes us. I mean, I tell you, I've been in a restaurant and seen a child at 11 eating ice cream early in the morning, and the table had about 5 people with them, and none of them looked alike. And they weren't the Girl Scouts or the Boy Scouts. And I kind of had to sit there and look a bit and say, something is just not right about this picture. Even I know at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're not supposed to be eating ice cream and cake. And they're eating ice cream and cake like they had not had a meal in several days. So that prompted me to go ask the folks at the front desk. I think something is happening. Of course, I was wrong, and that's okay, because there was a group. But the point was, I said something. Okay, I wasn't embarrassed about it, but I saw something, it didn't look right, and I said something. But it alerted the entrepreneur in the business to now start looking as well, because they weren't. So, if you see something, say something. So right now, I'm gonna open it up to questions and answers so that you can get an opportunity to talk to us about what's going on. I think we have one mic up over here.
Indicator that, that person is in trouble.
So another indicator or signal is they will, even whether they have hair or not, it could be anything, and then they'll put up 4 fingers.
Okay.
On either side.
So.
All right.
Great question.
Okay, now, in my neighborhood, there are 2 sections. One is for retired people, like me, and the other is the single family and the 2 houses. Okay, so for the past 4 years, I've been seeing this Asian lady, and the first time we saw her, she was walking, she was pregnant. The second year, she was pregnant again. The third year, she was pregnant again. This is the 4th year. Now, you might think, that's not uncommon, but I've never seen her with a pram. I've never seen her with kids. So I'm wondering, is that an indicator that this person is being used as, what would you say, a person who's trafficking? Because you don't see her, she walks, so I didn't think that she wasn't free, but she's walking in the neighborhood. She walks to the store, she walks to Kroger, she comes back with Kroger bags, she walks to Publix and she comes back, but she's pregnant, but we don't see any babies, we don't see her coming with any prams, nothing. So I'm just wondering, should I maybe one day follow her to see which house she's going to?
No, that's okay. I'm not trying to yell at you.
No, thank you.
For your specific case, I can give you my business card and we can follow up with your location. But if you ever have an inkling or a suspicion, a concern about something, and you're not exactly sure how to articulate it, but you can give us as much information as possible. You can go to Crime Stoppers, or you can go to the Gwinnett County website, go to police, and you can find our tip line where you can either provide information anonymously, or if you don't mind us reaching out to you for follow-up information, you can provide your email or your phone number. We can reach back out to you, and we can look into things and see if there's any more to it.
Commissioner Watkins, first, on behalf of the great citizens of Gwinnett County, I would just like to honor you by saying thank you for this phenomenal town hall. Can we give it up for Commissioner Watkins? I'm Deacon David Cuffey. I have the pleasure of an ongoing discussion that we'll be having on this Saturday in Snellville at Berean Christian Church, Gwinnett, which is 1465 High Point Road. And we'll actually have the FBI and the Gwinnett County Police there from 10 o'clock until about 11:30. So I want to personally invite all of you to come on out. Again, that's on Saturday at 10 o'clock. But most importantly, Commissioner, I want to be able to articulate the importance of this because many parents are not privy to the fact that when your child is playing those games, whether it's Roblox or whatever, you never know, and they particularly don't know who's on the other side of that screen. And there was a program at one time that the GBI had called GBI Cyber Safety. And actually, I had the pleasure of going out and teaching that. And you'd be surprised at the number of students in our school systems who were being taken advantage of, unfortunately, or within the school. So again, I just wanted to say thank you, sir, for a phenomenal job, and we look forward to an ongoing discussion on this Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure if this is a justice or law enforcement question. Y'all can figure that out. The 7 and 7 was really compelling. Thank you for sharing that stat. And at the very beginning, Commissioner Watkins, you were talking about how this becomes survival mode for the victims who are in it, and their traffickers are changing their brains, right? Their experience, their trauma is changing their brains. They are conditioned to never talk to law enforcement. And if they do, they can end up dead, right? So how do you, in law enforcement and the justice system, break through that when you are working with a victim?
So the things have really changed in human trafficking, the way we encounter it as law enforcement. And even when we interview the females and how they're treated on scene makes a big difference. We come at them as kind of a victim approach, and I got to be careful sometimes when I say victim too, when I'm dealing with females that have been in it before, because they don't see themselves as victim. So when we come at them, the way you approach as law enforcement is a big deal, and that's the start of it. A lot of times it's just the way you start in the approach. Their mind has been conditioned. Like when we tell people, when we're out there and if you're working drugs, you've got a kilo of cocaine. That kilo of cocaine is just a kilo of cocaine. But a human being's a human being, and it's got 2 legs and arms, can stand up, can talk, can tell you what they think we want to hear, and what they want to do to get away from the police as fast as they can. So a lot of times when we intercept as law enforcement, we'll come into their life and we'll treat them. We'll tell them, hey, I understand what you're going through. I've met plenty of girls throughout the years. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I can tell you what this trafficker is going to say to you, and I know what he's told to you, and I know when I listen to that, it's a hard thing in law enforcement with the advocates and us if we do decide to arrest, and sometimes we do need to arrest just so I can get her or him out of the lifestyle for that night, and I know they're going to have a safe place to sleep for that night, even though they don't trust me or may not trust me at this point, but that can be the start, and that's how important it is when we bring the solicitor's office, the DA's office, we bring the advocates in, and then we let them do the work that we can do. And we can go from there. I'll tell them tonight is just an arrest, but where we go from there is really in their court and how they want to move forward, going forward with this here. So it's a tough spot in law enforcement. I hope that answers your question kind of on the law enforcement end, the way you approach. Then Candace, I know, can fill you in here of going the advocate way and how we take them from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to echo what the sergeant was talking about the approach and the rapport that is built with law enforcement and these victims. It's critical, it's crucial that they have people trained in that trauma-informed, victim-centered approach, but also from the advocate's perspective, having the involvement on the front end and throughout the duration of the case. So again, we're fortunate that we have victim witness programs both in our solicitor's office and our district attorney's office, to where you have advocates that then can walk the victims through the criminal justice process throughout the prosecution. And I would also like to say the involvement of victim leaders, victim survivors, survivor leaders in operations. That's something within the sheriff's office that we rely upon, those relationships that we've developed, because Sometimes the best person to talk to a victim is someone who's had that lived experience. So we rely heavily on guidance and advice from them as well in those relationships that we've built.
And finally, I think when they get to court, right, because that's sometimes, as prosecutors, it can be easy at times to lose sight and just focus on the case. So it's really important to have a prosecuting office that understands victim-centered prosecution, that understands that you may have a survivor who's not cooperative and doesn't look like what you think a victim should look like, does not speak the way you think a victim should speak. So having that extra training and having a team that understands how to be sensitive and mindful of that, mindful of the fact that you may have somebody coming into your office who's distrustful or who has a different instinct from what you think they should have, and having prosecutors who are trained and investigators that are trained to understand how to navigate that. Because what you don't want to have is these great people do all of this great work, they get the file to your office, and then it falls flat because your prosecutor does not know how to speak to the victim. Your prosecutor doesn't know how to engage with them and not be off-putting. So it does carry all the way through. It's something that's very important that all aspects of this partnership and this collaboration work together, and understanding that when we're dealing with these cases, and listen, Gwinnett has the largest school district in the state. So the amount of misdemeanor sex cases and things that we're seeing is only going to continue to grow. So it's important to have the entire team on board, understanding that this looks a little different and we have to approach it differently, but we're all working together towards a better outcome.
Thank you. We have time for another question. Go ahead.
Hi. I didn't, for a long time, I didn't realize, actually, I am a traffic victim, and I've had a hard time getting some assistance. Almost the last several years, I realized I'm in a romantic family traffic. This is a family traffic victim from a son and father situation. Not going too much into detail, but I've been trying to get between 19 attorneys online and offline. I've been scoundreled by attorneys online and offline. Lost a lot of financial legal situations. I even flew to Washington, D.C. and to a Department of Justice event. They said my civil rights, I had civil rights violation. I do have a civil rights violation case number now. And I have a trafficking case number now. And that's a year ago. They just now sent me that maybe a month now. So I do have a trafficking case number. So I do need assistance because at this point, it's hard for me to trust attorneys. And I was gonna try to go pro se. But this case is so huge that my life's been threatened 3 times by my traffickers. And just in September, the second trafficker tried to take me to court because I've exposed them. And they're drug dealers, I found out. They're real estate, they sell real estate amongst different states in South Central Panama. They use multiple women, and I need help. My original attorney didn't help. He changed my whole case and made it look like I was the victim. I was the problem. And he didn't even use he didn't use my original story. He didn't use my witnesses. He didn't even use my evidence. And so I lost trust in attorneys. And I'm like trying to do this on my own. I've hired a private detective. I did all the legwork. My trafficker threatened to kill his own son that's in prison. So I've got other victims. I've got documents. I need some help.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, I'm glad you're in a safe place, in a safe space.
And thank y'all for having this, because
Oh,
if I hadn't got on
appreciate it.
Facebook, I would have never known y'all were here. And thank
Well,
y'all.
I'm sure that we have someone over here that if you would stick around after it's over, that could talk to you about your situation. So please stick around.
Thank you.
And panelists, Can we
I've already went to the Capitol in Washington, D.C., and to Atlanta, Georgia, and talked to the legislators. So
Okay.
I need help.
Okay, we're here.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Earlier you spoke about if it comes down to it, they have to be arrested. As arresting goes, having worked with the sheriff's office, all the people that have been arrested, women and men, they go in a cell. Will these victims be treated in a different way, or will they be treated the same way as a normal, well, not normal, but once that they're arrested, are they assigned a certain person to the case that will make them different from the people that have been arrested along with them?
Sure. So, yeah, as a part of the Victim Services Unit, we're actually working on now intake forms and classification forms so that that's going to be a part of the process. But I can tell you the last 5 years since I've been with the Sheriff's Office, when it's been identified that someone is a trafficking victim, yes, we pull them aside. We offer services to the best of our ability with their circumstances, but they do get met with and given the opportunity to find out about opportunities outside of the lifestyle.
Great. We have 2 more questions.
I too would like to just say thank you for bringing this forward. I think that it's a very important issue. And I also think that it's an issue that is very difficult to broach. My name is Dr. Karen Rawls. I am the president of the Georgia Nurses Foundation. And my question is, when you have victims that come through the healthcare system, how do you connect yourselves with the victims that comes through the healthcare system? I've worked in both Grady System and Gwinnett Medical Center before it became Northside. And there are many victims that come through the emergency rooms and are identified in the emergency room by the nurses and are cared for by the nurses. However, the resources are extremely limited, and the ability for the nurses to be able to provide the correct care is just not there. We can provide care for them with their medical and healthcare issues, but most of the time, their issues also extend to behavioral health and mental health, and they need immediate intervention. So I just want to know what resources are there, and Commissioner, I want to know what kind of money is put into this process, as well as I also want to know what is the ratio of victims getting out of this trafficking versus the ratio of victims continuously making a cycle of it. And thank you for answering my question.
I can answer some of it, but I can't answer all of those questions that you asked. But as far as the hospital, I think one of the most important things would be how you treat them and how you talk to them, because you can take care of their medical problems, but what they're needing is psychological safety and options. Because if you think about somebody who has been in coercion, who has been trapped, forced, even though they may feel like they're a survivor, they chose it, they feel like they didn't have choices at some point. So anything that does not give them a choice is gonna elicit a fight or flight response. So as many options as possible would help them feel safer. We talked a little bit up there, multiple people, about a non-judgmental stance, which would be if they decide to disclose, if they want to talk about something, really understanding that. And that has a lot to do with managing your facial expressions if they have something to tell you that you're not used to hearing. I think getting your staff training on this topic in particular, which things to look for, how to respond, some typical responses, resources. I think even being able to hand them a page that has resources on it if they want to take it. Sometimes I know if they feel that they're at risk, you can have different ways to give it to them, where it's like a nail salon. This is the number where you go to get your nails, so that you don't have it with them that looks like something in case the person that is working with them finds it and they won't be at risk. I work at Viewpoint Health, and we do mental health services. So we offer support, and we actually do admissions to our psychiatric hospital directly from any of the medical facilities. So that's something that we can get you information on. We also do outpatient counseling. So if they wanted to do that, if they were wanting some help, we do the whole continuum of services. If there's also substance use, with that, we offer that as well. We do adults, children, all people. So on that standpoint, we can get you resources. I think also getting your staff some training to help them feel more confident and comfortable in how to address that in ways that they could manage it, and getting those resources in place would be the part that I could offer to answer on that question, and I can hand the rest over to you.
No problem. What I will do is Nashanta will take your information, and we can get you the exact dollar amount. The dollar amount because as the county, we provide funds to the majority of some of the nonprofits and through Viewpoint Health and others. So I want to make sure that you have the right numbers and the organizations that receive those funds and what they do, and we can get that for you.
Yes, I want to say it's really important, and I'm sure you know this, as a provider, as a clinician, because I too have also worked the ERs at Grady and Northside, all over zones 1 through 6 of Atlanta. It's really important that when we walk into the room that they see a person, not a badge, not a doctor, not a clinician, and often I think it's important, and you can attest to this, in order to establish a rapport, it's important that we establish a rapport with individuals, and sometimes that requires what we call code switching. So I meet, if I'm with a young lady and she is not really interested in talking to me, sometimes that requires me to remove my jacket and she gets to see my tattoos. We're talking about my tattoos. I take my earrings out, or either I put them in. You know, this is not dress code in the ER, right? Put my hair back in a ponytail, and then we just sit and we chop it up, all right? So I think it's really important that if we want individuals to come into the ERs and receive the services for us to be able to provide those warm handoffs and that linkage, we meet people where they are. And sometimes that requires putting the notepad down, putting your earrings on, showing your tattoos, so that they feel like they can talk to us. Representation matters. It does. Okay.
Great. One more.
Can I add one more? Just as a resource, Mosaic, Georgia is the Sexual Assault Center and Child Advocacy Center for Gwinnett County, and we have a very close relationship with all of the Northside facilities. We've been doing the medical forensic exams. We have SANE nurses on staff for people that have experienced sexual violence. Now, all people who have experienced trafficking don't always get those exams, want them. There's a lot of different things about it. But I will say that, and I've got a great team here, that we get calls regularly from the EDs when they have some concerns about a patient that's presenting. And if they need our services, we can also show up. We've got limited practice privileges for that. So we all do try to work and connect in that.
Great. One more question.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner, for putting this on, and thank you for all of you that are here participating to share with us all of your knowledge about what's going on in our community. There's so much to unpack with this, and it's very heartbreaking to see, especially what we see is going on, especially with our women. So I'll just kind of address some of the questions, or I'll pose some of the questions for anyone to answer. How many of those are below the age of 18? What is the percentage of those? I know there was a number that was put out there that was about 40% are minorities. So that means that there's another 60% that we don't know what those individuals are. And then there was something that was really posed and said, or that was presented and said, a lot of times when individuals are coming out of these situations, where do they go? They don't have the resources, they don't have a place to stay, they don't have family. So that leads into maybe what was also presented are these individuals coming from the foster care system, and who knows, maybe they're disconnected with their family. My question is also, how many of those, and do we know, that potentially could be on the spectrum? I noticed some of the mention of the tendencies that some of these are experiencing and the disconnection. A lot of times we're thinking that this may be trauma, But a lot of times, this may also be with how they deal with those experiences, and they could potentially be on the spectrum. And so they're going back into these behaviors because they have their mind set up that they are not going to get the assistance that they need. And so maybe that's something that's not explored that could be answered at this point, but that's something to consider. And I say that because I have a daughter that is on the spectrum, and she was leered out as well. Unfortunately, some things occurred for her not to get into a situation that she would not have been able to get out of. So I do know that there's a lot of exposure on the internet to get our children out here, to be connected with them, to potentially get them into situations that they will not be able to get themselves out of, even though we're parents that are present. But there's a lot of predatory actions that are going on right now, especially to our young women. And this is a big concern that we should all have in our community. In addition to that, I have not really heard what are the consequences that the individuals that are soliciting these people, these children or these women or these young men, in behaving or in acting in these ways. It's a market. I know there was one time for the Super Bowl, it was about 200 individuals that got caught for soliciting from 9 years old and above, and then you never heard anything else about what happened to those 200 individuals, because Atlanta has been known, and I've known this since 2015, that Atlanta is a hub for sex trafficking.
Okay, well, thank you. We're gonna.
I'm sorry, but I would like to know kind of what are the consequences for the individuals that are soliciting these.
Okay.
So I think you're going to get a couple of people speaking on a few things. Thank you for your question and your remarks. So for a first-time misdemeanor pimping right now in the state is a misdemeanor, which means it carries up to a $1,000 fine and 12 months in jail, or there is some jail time associated with it. If we have the evidence that the person engaged in a pimping act, we have multiple sex crime misdemeanors. Each of them carry up to 12 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. As they start to cross over into felony territory, that goes to Madam DA and her team. So things like keeping a place of prostitution, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, pimping, those are all misdemeanors in the state. And how those are sentenced really depends on the person's history, the evidence against them, and the totality of the circumstances. So I hope that sheds some light on some of the misdemeanors. I will pass to Madam DA.
Thank you for that question. Just recently in our legislature, pimping has become a felony. So, we can have the law, but until we can get a hold of that person, you're going to have an unsatisfied feeling when it comes to dealing with what's going on. This is a kind of situation where we need y'all to say something, because even with your daughter being on the spectrum, the law also imposes upon them, she could be 20. If she's on a spectrum and she has disability, we're going to throw the book at her for that. So this is what we have to do as a community. Just reach out to us, tell us what's going on. If anybody else is experiencing something like that, let us know so that we can put our eyes on it. We have the best policing agencies right here in Gwinnett County, and we are working hard on this problem. So I don't want you to feel hopeless. I was getting that from you, that you felt a little, despaired behind it. But just continue to reach out, let us know what's going on, and we will get on top of it. I have a very talented staff. Beth, I'm gonna ask you to stand up, and same thing with John. Y'all stand up. These are people, and there's another John over here that's part of our staff. So we are working hard on these problems. We are anticipating that they will get bigger. So that's why we need the cooperation of the community more so than ever.
the law is something we're constantly chasing, and our DA's office and a lot of the state reps and our senates have done a lot of things lately to change laws and make it more easier for us in law enforcement to go after them, harsher sentences, trafficking the people. Juveniles, I wish I could give a percentage, but as you know, here in Atlanta, it's a very transient area for traffickers. Getting your hands on a juvenile, getting for us to get in touch with a juvenile and making those cases. They are needles in a haystack, but we're very lucky here in Gwinnett County. There's a lot of other agencies out there that do not have a vice unit or a trace unit or things like that that are out there searching every day to find these juveniles. You'd be surprised if I told you some of the agencies that are out here that don't have vice units, but they try to do the best they can when they do come across these situations. Yes, people with autism there, it's a felony to traffic somebody with a learning disability or under the age of 18. Human trafficking is a felony. I was at state capitol last week before the Senate board working to help make stronger laws here within the state of Georgia to go after these people. And we can do so much as law enforcement, but a lot of times we need the public's help, not just in recovering people, but also pushing the law along to make stronger laws out there. So it makes us easier, and it also deters the buyers that are out there trying to purchase commercial sex. We need the public's help on that. In Gwinnett County, we're very active. We do run John operations where we go after the buyers of sex. We run operations out of hotels. We'll run operations out of apartments or homes. We'll do street level operations going after the buyers. It is hard in Metro Atlanta. Like I said, we're lucky here with the agencies we have. A lot of these agencies don't have, it's a lot of training also that goes into training these officers on how to make solid, good cases. But we're very lucky here in Gwinnett County and very active with going after the buyers and the purchasers of commercial sex.
I also thank you for that question. I just came back through the airport, and in all the women's rooms, there's questions about if you've been trafficked, do you need help? I have not been in the men's rooms, but I don't know if it does tell them, do not buy sex, do not pay to abuse a girl's body. I don't know, but I do know that the widespread nature of pornography, which is not erotica, pornography has a lot of violent tendencies. And we do know from the children, and we have seen through Mosaic, Georgia, that they have had things done to them where men act like they're ordering a hot fudge sundae and what they want done, and it's very violent. So if we can also create some awareness that it's not okay to pay to abuse another's body, regardless of age, but particularly when you talk about vulnerabilities, neurodivergence is a challenge, also having various resources, and we need to be able to have laws that also hold the buyer accountable. Because right now, it's a demand business, right? That's how they stay open, because the guys keep coming in, majority guys, buying that. And well, it's not all men, I'll say that, but the ones that do are creating a lot of harm for all of us. So I think we need all these great guys that are here to help us join that chorus that respect and care for our girls and women is important.
Well, why don't we, everybody, give our panelists a great big hand for their honesty, their courage, and their commitment. I want to thank each one of you in the audience for learning and leaning into this difficult but necessary conversation. Awareness is only the first step. What matters next is action. Knowing where to turn, who to call, how to support those who may be vulnerable or in need. As we transition to the resource fair, I want to encourage everyone to take time to connect with the organizations represented here tonight. These partners are doing critical work every day in prevention in our community. You'll have an opportunity to meet representatives from Because One Matters, GUIDE, Gwinnett Coalition, Gwinnett Fire and Emergency Services, Gwinnett Sheriff's Office of Mental Health Task Force, Hope Dealers Outreach, Mosaic, Georgia, Reviewed kids, revved up kids, okay, yeah. Reading is fundamental, okay, gotcha. Revved up kids, Single Parent Alliance, and Resource Center, Street Grace, Viewpoint Health, and the Solicitor's General Office. Please visit their tables and ask and learn more about the services and support we have right here in Gwinnett County. I want to thank you all for listening and being a part of this solution. This conversation doesn't end tonight. It continues with each one of us. We'll now move into the resource fair portion of this evening, just located outside in the auditorium. And thank you for being here with me this evening.